Good morning. This is DeProgram with Ted Rall and Jamarl Thomas. It is Friday, August 28th, 2026. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like, follow, and share. And please, please, please subscribe to the show. That's what we really, really need you to do. So we have a lot to talk about as we end the week here. We know a little bit more about why the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, went to Russia the other day. We have some reaction to the Meta lawsuit settlement that we discussed yesterday. That's the huge $17 to $22 billion settlement. Parents of victims are pissed. The NTSB, I kind of like this story. I think we'll be able to dig deeper into it. Is blaming in part that near miss incident between the president's helicopter earlier this month and on the Trump construction site, which had to relocate the fact that the helicopter normally lands on the White House grounds. It's temporarily across the street at the Ellipse. That's where the Washington Monument is, if you've been to D.C. And the NTSB, that's the National Transportation Safety Board, that's the entity that investigates these kinds of disasters or near disasters. And basically they're saying that communications really, really sucked. So for me, the story is, it's interesting because of that. We now know the details of how this went down, and it's a little bit frightening. Anyway, if you have comments, please put them in the live chat if you're watching live between 9 and 10 a.m. on the East Coast on YouTube or Rumble. Producer Robbie will go ahead and put those questions up. We do really especially appreciate the paid super chats and Rumble rants because we're short of money here. It's weird. We've got the numbers. We're banging out the numbers, but the money is not coming in due to Rumble. YouTube hasn't screwed us, but Rumble has. So we're hoping that you guys will consider subscribing to us over on YouTube. Yesterday, we had our first evening exclusive hangout for those who wanted to join, and we did that last night at 7 p.m. We're going to do it again, the next one at the end of September. Probably we'll try for the last Thursday of the month. That'll be kind of like the default place for that, unless someone can't make it, in which case we can maybe reschedule. Anyway, all right, that's enough talking. How are you doing this morning, Jamarl?
I'm doing okay. Can't complain. No issues. This is going to be the last day of sobriety until my birthday on Monday. Momentous. Yeah. So
birthday weekend is about raging.
No, it's not going to rage. Maybe rage myself. If anything, it's probably going to be lack of sobriety. Hopefully, getting pampered. I don't know. I don't have anything momentous planned. And to be honest, this is the first birthday I'm in the country. Going back for like 8 years.
Jamarl, did you have you and I both have birthdays in late August. I always found, going back to childhood, that it was kind of a pretty bad time of the year to have a birthday because people are all away on vacation or they're just making their way back. So nobody really, they miss your birthday, right? Like even people who only travel for 2 weeks out of the year, they go, late August is when they go. That's America's top travel time. And so often, if your parents wanted to have like a little party for you and your friends were never around and that kind of thing.
See, my family was poor. So it's not like, they were jet setting, right? Everybody was always in state or in the country.
Sure. But if they were traveling out of state or whatever,
Yeah, but
my mother was
I guess
poor
I never had
too.
any feelings about one way or the other.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I was an isolated child. I didn't have any feelings one way or the other. And I didn't even, when I was a kid, I didn't like being a kid. And I didn't like kids in general. I preferred adults.
I was that way too. Only child.
Yeah, I didn't like kids. They were unpredictable. They were usually unreasonable.
Violent.
Yeah, I didn't like them all that much. And so I used to hang out more with teachers or hang out more with adults or hang out more with et cetera.
Yeah, you and I
didn't get it. I just didn't understand them, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's totally cool. All right. So should we, do we want to follow up John Ratcliffe? Do you want to?
Yeah, we could do that. The other story about Trump, just real quick.
Yeah.
Man, that would have been an irony. Donald Trump decides to go on all of these construction projects, and then Donald Trump eats it because of one of his dumb construction projects. That would have been great, short of the people who would have died on the other airplane. The irony of it would have just been it would have wrote
Epic.
itself as a story.
Yeah, it's epic.
President does dumb things. President does dumb construction. President protects his dumb construction in lieu of everything else that's basically taking place. President eats it because of his dumb construction.
Yeah, Icarus flew too high.
Yeah.
Or
And by the way,
Icarus flew
nobody
too
would care.
close.
And nobody would have cared.
Well,
They
yeah.
would have cared about the people on the plane that died. They wouldn't have given the ship out Trump.
Yeah, I wonder if something did happen. I mean, obviously, it is. I mean, it's fair to call a MAGA a cult at this point, based on the way they
Yeah.
behave online. And the thing is, I wonder what their approach is going to be if and when this president passes into the good night, whether he dies or whatever, something else happens, somewhere he just completes his term. Are they going to, mourn his passing? Are they going to, like when JFK died, like zillions of Irish Catholics and other people had put his picture up in their living room, and there it stayed. It was like he stayed alive for many years after he died. I mean, we still talk about JFK.
Even now.
Yeah, we're still obsessed about what happened to him and what was lost or what was not lost. Would MAGA as a movement decide to basically view Trump as like a saint and just keep wallowing in him after he's gone, or would they move on quickly to something else, which would probably be the smarter move?
They'll canonize him. What they're going to do is like what you're talking about doing. It's kind of like how when that really prominent Jewish rabbi died, the Rebbe.
Schneerson.
Yeah,
who looks like Santa Claus.
Yeah, a lot of the Chabad people will still go to his grave and pray to him, all this other stuff. That's what the Trumpers are going to do. They're going to go to Trump's mausoleum, gilded in gold, maybe have a nice triumphal arch, maybe actually build something like the mausoleum of Hadrian, there in Rome, and just go all out.
Won't he be buried at the golf course in New Jersey next to Ivanka?
Who knows?
I mean, Ivanka.
They're not building anything for Trump. I'm sorry. This idea that he is there is a difference between JFK and Trump. JFK was loved by people across the country, whether they were Catholic, whether other. My mom remembers the exact day that JFK died. Nobody is going to remember anything about Trump when he dies. You may have some cultists who are hardcore, but they don't mean anything. They are dispersed throughout the country into these random locations, maybe in various states. But there's not going to be that energy that's there to canonize somebody who, A, wasn't even representing America, who seems to be a stalking horse for another country and doesn't even give a shit about Americans.
But you have to remember this, JT. You have to remember this, JT. The MAGA people think that Trump represents true Americans. I don't know what that means, but that's what they think.
Non-liberals.
Now, if you are a red-blooded, heterosexual, Israel instead, America last, patriotic American, Trump's your guy, and they will lose, and they will lose their minds.
That is they're so diffuse. Like you might get a small percentage of the country that's that way. I could be wrong. I mean, think of Obama, right? When Obama drops dead, you will have blacks crying at their graves.
True.
But that's because he was the first black president. He was like the first. It's not that he did anything. He's just a liberal. If his name was Bill Clinton, nobody would think anything more about Obama than anything else, right?
Right.
It's his race that gives him that gravitas in regards to historical context. What is Trump's claim to fame in this way? That he's going to be.
I mean, with Kennedy, it was also the youth, the glamour, the new generation kind of thing, and it was the way that it's what happened to him. The country was largely at peace at the time.
Yes, and
then it was
reaching out to the Soviets, and trying to kill the Vietnam War, meaning they're
and the sense of optimism and humor. Yeah. I mean, I gotta say one thing that nobody should forget. I mean, I know the two of you guys have seen this, but I would recommend anybody to just go on YouTube and Google JFK press conference film, and just and choose any random. I mean, you'll see it's crazy. I mean, he gave a press conference pretty much every day that he was a president, and he's so easygoing. Like he's having a great time. He steps out from behind the podium casually rolls up his sleeves and he just leans up against the podium and he's cracking jokes with the press corps and they're going back and forth and doing zingers. I mean, that's just something we don't have now. I mean,
Right.
We talked yesterday about like the propaganda difference between like right wing and left wing messaging. There it is, right? I mean, it's like the Trump glower is not going to be missed. Honestly, he probably he'd be better, more fondly remembered if he was more authentically himself and like grinning and funny and cracking jokes and smiling.
This is Trump.
But that's the real Trump actually behind closed doors.
I don't think so. I think the Trump that we got is the real Trump.
It's not.
You don't think so?
Oh, it's an act. It's like George W. Bush with his fake, Texas accent. It's completely an act. I mean,
Is it an act when he attacks Iran?
In a way, I mean, obviously he's actually attacking them. Yeah, he's actually attacking them. But in a way, it's not authentically him. In other words, if he felt like he had his druthers, this wouldn't have happened.
You've got the two of y'all got to.
He's the puppet.
You're acting as if he has no agency. I don't buy that premise.
Oh, I mean, we all have agency. I mean, when you choose to be a puppet and to be oppressed, you're choosing that decision. But he's choosing that. He's choosing to play, to suck up to his donors and his supporters and to Israel. He doesn't have to, but that's the decision. That's the devil's bargain that he made.
To destroy and mangle Social Security and Medicare. Was that an act? See, I don't believe these things are acts. I think these things are him. He is doing this stuff. I mean, you could say, well, when he's
but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I don't care. But I think I hear what you're saying. I don't think it matters. I mean, I think fundamentally you're judged by your actions, right? So It doesn't matter like what's in his heart of hearts. I'm just saying that, like, I'm just sort of observing that if we had seen the authentic Donald Trump, he might be more fondly remembered.
I don't think so.
I don't even think that Trump even knows who the authentic Trump is anymore.
Yeah.
I think he's been a chameleon so much, he's completely lost his own mind. And y'all got the thing about the Trump scowl, and I'll go away after this. You've got his punchline. I don't know if the two of y'all ever waste your life on Truth Social, just going through, just looking at the sycophants.
No.
I take that hit for you, JT, so that way I'm able to understand. So,
thank you, Robbie.
So whenever you're getting stoned out of your mind, please think fondly on me while I do this.
I will. And by the way, get that cow milk, that male cow milk. Also, you got to drink that.
Yeah, it's not jizz.
Screw up, piss off. Not going to happen. Anyway,
you want it. You're heading out right after this show.
I prefer female udders.
Male
Sorry,
breath.
but anyway, but Trump's whole stick now is they're not after me, they're after you, and I'm in the way. He is the wall. He is the bulwark. He's the Theodosian walls. The hordes are right there. They're trying to scale over it. Thankfully, they don't. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and they're just waiting for. So basically, their mentality is that America's under siege by Iran and Russia and China. So you have this new axis of evils. I guess you throw North Korea in there, depending on the day. But it's those 3 to 4 countries. They are besieging America. They hate you for your freedoms. They hate you for being taxed. They do. They believe it. They believe it. For them, it is a matter of faith. Now, how I look at the Bible, people look at me like I'm kind of crazy because I actually believe it. I look at the Trumpers the exact same way. Because they believe it. They want the freedom to get bent over and raped by the IRS every single year. They want the freedom to have their currency destroyed. They want to have the freedom for mass inflation. And all the while wave the flag celebrating American greatness and exceptionalism. And these other countries, they want to take all that away from you, Mr. America. They want to take all that away from you. And so you got Trump, this big old wall protecting you, so that way the status quo
from the Canadians
so freaking well can save you. It's fear of the other.
It's amazing. True. That's part of it. It's definitely part of it. I mean, the thing is, there's a bunch of aspects to this, right? To this phenomenon. But let's talk. Obviously, Trump did not die. Kind of unfortunately for the country, and so let me just go through this, because it is fascinating. All right, so basically this Marine One came within a mile of a passenger jet. Now at peak at peak speed, an American passenger jet travels 600 miles per hour. So it can travel, 1 mile in 6 seconds? So 1 mile is close. Okay,
Right.
it's very close. And so even if it's traveling 200 miles an hour, that's still 18. That's still
Even like 2 or 3 seconds for somebody to respond.
it's a
to
few
something.
seconds, right? So anyway, so the helicopter is supposed to give a 3-minute liftoff warning in order to clear the airspace. Okay. To me, by the way, I just have to say that seems like not a lot of time to give air traffic control in the busy nation's capital time to clear the airspace. But all right, that's what they do.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's what
the first time, I guess it used to work okay before America started to suck ass. But
Right.
the first attempt basically was not received by Reagan National Airport, ATC, at all. Like, oh, well,
What do you mean? So
they just didn't get it.
helicopter sends out and says, "Hey, we're lifting off," and
We're
there's no
moving.
response.
We're on the move. No answer. But they're like, all right, fine, let's go. The second attempt was broken and completely unreadable. So it sounded like an announcement on a Manhattan subway. And then the third time, the helicopter tried to relay the 3-minute warning through Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, military base. That also did not work. And they're like, fuck it, let's go.
Wait. Okay, this is wild to me. So
Yeah.
Anacostia. Okay, I used to live in Anacostia, and I know the military base you're talking about.
This is Virginia.
So they
right?
tried to relay it through them in order to get to, I guess, the
Radio.
airport.
Mhm.
And even that, there was no answer.
Correct. Right.
How? So wait. So where the fuck was Anacostia? I'm sorry. Where was the Anacostia military?
Well, if it's anything like this report, by the way, breaks at the same time as, remember the fatal collision between a plane at LaGuardia Airport and a bus, or an internal bus. So it turns out that like at least 2, maybe 3 air traffic controllers stepped out, were away from the desk when that happened. So they didn't have enough people to handle it. And so
is this the same thing? They didn't have enough people at the.
it sounds like that. Yeah.
That's wild to me. I mean, because they tried to relay it to a military base, and it seems like that didn't work, which
Right.
raises question about the military base and the readiness of that base. Then they tried to radio it through. So this was like 3 or 4 times that they tried to. So it wasn't Trump's plane that was at fault, because they tried to do this over and over and over again.
Well, I mean, it is. They are at fault because they shouldn't have left. They never they tried to tell everybody, "Hey, we're on the way. We're on the move with the president," and they didn't get like an okay, like, "We got you. It's cool," from anybody. And they're like,
They
we're
went,
good.
"Yeah."
Let's go. I mean, come on, that's their fault.
It's like,
And
just
also,
let's go. We
yeah,
don't
fuck
have
it.
to wait
Let's-
for confirmation.
Yeah, we don't need permission. There's if you ever buy the Sex Pistols album, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, there's like live sessions and they're doing a cover of a Monkees song, and someone says like, "Don't we have to get permission for that?" And Johnny Rotten goes, "We don't need permission to do anything." And that was it. And and the thing is, like, not only did they not get permission, they also were leaving from an unfamiliar new location, right? So pilots who are really familiar with that airspace wouldn't necessarily be expecting Marine One to be leaving
Pop it
from
out
the
of the
Ellipse. They'd be expecting it to leave from the White House.
Right. That's wild. I mean, because you're right. Like, it's almost like the pilot says, "The president is ready to go, so screw it." And it's like, dude, you got to get permission. Like anybody else would have.
Hey, he's got a small bladder. He can't wait. He's got to go.
He can't wait. He's old. He's crotchety. We got to go.
Yeah, he's
It's like, "Mr.
cantankerous.
President, this is dangerous. I don't give a shit if it's dangerous. I need to get to so and so.
Yeah. I have a fundraiser to go to.
Yeah, I got to make some cash."
I've got some Israelis to meet.
So Tel Aviv is
'Cause
still
you were
far
right.
away.
Well, you're right. Under normal circumstances, anybody else would have to wait for the confirmation.
Well, of course. Right?
It's just like,
Yes, and it's air traffic control. I mean, look, have you ever listened to, I don't know if they still do this on the planes, but when you could listen to the different channels and on when you fly, and sometimes you could hear the air traffic control. It was fascinating. And you could listen to the the pilots in the region all talking to each other. I mean, that's all it is. It's like, hey, I'd like to move this way. I'd like to change my altitude here. I'd like to go to this runway. I've got this problem. I've got this situation. And it's like, can I, may I, please? Yes, you can. That's literally what ATC is. And it's like, obviously, I mean, this is literally the equivalent of like, you arrive at the traffic signal. All the lights are out, and you're like, there's no cop directing traffic. You're like, fuck it, I'm going. Well, you might get hit.
This is even worse. This is like a red light, and you're just saying fuck it. Because
right, yeah, you had a red light. That's true.
Until it gets confirmation, because
it's
you
a red light.
Don't know what's in the sky.
Right. Yeah, and when you're flying, the answer is no, unless you get a solid yes. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, because you don't know what's in the sky.
Because it's near crash. Because it's flying. Which, by the way, I just like to remind everyone is we're very new at here as a species. We only really started doing that. I mean, 100 years ago, nobody was doing this commercially, right? I mean, nobody. Right. So,
I don't know. I just think it's wild. I mean, it's the president, and the president is God Emperor, so he can do whatever he wants. Oh my God, I almost got hit by a plane.
Well, to me, what this is really a reflection on. Again, we're going back to like this is a declining empire thing, and it ties in nicely with this Putin story. But basically, it's like, how do you assess a country like that? We're a fucking joke, right? I mean, the money that we spend. Like if you heard like this happened in Senegal, you'd be like, well, that's kind of a poor country. It's like, but this is a superpower that purports to tell the rest of the world what to do and who gets to have nuclear weapons. And like, we can't even do something as basic as like not have the president's chopper hit commercial planes because we can't do something as basic as overstaff our air traffic control towers. They should have too many dudes. They should have so little to do that they're bored. That should be their biggest fucking problem. They shouldn't be stressed out at all. It should totally be like, I want to go out for a smoke. No worries, Bob. You're good. It's like this kind of shit. It's like the same thing with LaGuardia. I mean, it ties into the fact that we don't have missiles or bombs or interceptors, even though we spend $1.5 trillion a year on defense. I mean, it's incompetence, right?
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw the Navy story where the Navy is running out of money. And so they started going after people's salaries.
No.
And there was concern that they would basically not get their salaries because the Navy has been raiding money that's supposed to go to paying people in order to maintain operations.
What? So they didn't go to Congress and get an increased allocation because they probably thought Congress would be pissed, rightly so, and that even Republicans would complain. So rather than do that, they're like, fuck the sailors. What do they do?
Well, they would have to go to Congress at some point because they can't keep doing that shit. And you think families were pissed off that their family members were tweaking on boats? Wait till now.
Well, the only reason, primarily, look, with Robbie's son, I've been doing a lot of reading up about why kids join the military, right? And like overwhelmingly, the vast majority of people enlist in the military because of money. Right? It's not to protect the country. It's because they want money. Well, if you're not getting money, then why the fuck are you there? Right?
Well, you don't need a paycheck if you're at sea for 10 months out of the year. What are you going to spend it on? So I mean, I'm sure that's part of the
prostitutes.
But you're at sea.
So ocean prostitutes, sea witches.
I mean, I guess maybe you could try to pay a porpoise. I'm not sure how well that's going to work for you.
No, you're sending the money home to your family so they can pay for expenses back home. It's not for you necessarily. Plus, I'm sure there's shit that they buy in the commissary.
Okay, Steve, I see over there on YouTube about the ban you.
So here's the article. It says the U.S. Navy is running out of money because of the Iran war. Leaked Pentagon memo says the Navy has shortfalls in payroll accounts due to the Department of Defense, quote, raiding, unquote, raiding them to fund the war.
I mean, it's literally, like, look, if you did that at like, DeProgram LLC and said like, oh, I just took them, like, hey, Ted, I'm sorry, I was going to pay you, but we needed new equipment. I needed a new mic instead, so I'm not paying you. I mean, that's illegal. It's fraud. I mean, it's embezzlement. I mean, but they're unaccountable because it's the U.S. Navy.
U.S. government. Yeah, right. It's fucking outrageous. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, half of the money that we spend on the military goes to salaries anyway. And, now you're in the middle of operations that you don't need to be in the middle of. And you're raiding the people who are.
That's not good for
fighting.
morale.
I mean, what about the rah the troops stuff? Like I
Yeah.
always said, the rah the troop stuff is bullshit. Every bit as much as the Ukraine stuff. Like, oh, we support Ukraine, just like people support the military. It's like it's bullshit. If you
All
really
right.
supported the military, you wouldn't want them rummaging around foreign countries, getting themselves shot, or for that matter, having them kill other people.
Right.
That's support of the military. Keep them at home
Right.
unless necessary.
Nick Riviera, PhD, has a comment. He says the reflection pool is ISIS's vagina. Washington's cock is Osiris's penis. When they're in union, Osiris's penis can be seen in the reflection pool. That gives birth to their son, Horus. That's too good. That's too good. That's too good to not.
The obelisk, I think is what they used to call them.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, that's true. So if you look at the way that Washington, D.C. was laid out, it's very Masonic in its design. So it sounds crazy, but actually, though, it's real.
No,
so
it's true.
I know it's true.
So the Washington Monument is supposed to represent a penis, and the reflection pool is to reflect a womb. So I mean, that is a lot of occult stuff in D.C. That's part of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They're not allowed to have anything larger or higher than the
Washington Monument.
penis.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's like our.
Isn't it? By the way, isn't it? Speaking of rank incompetence, isn't the Washington Monument like a little tilty these days, in danger of falling over?
Who knows? It could be. I wouldn't be shocked if you told me, if you came back and said, "Hey, we did some measurements and it looks like it's falling over." I'd be like, "That sounds about right." It's like Queen Elizabeth dying, right? And it's like she got to her point of saying, "Fuck it, I'm out."
Yeah, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. It was the end of an era.
Red blood cell. Robbie, if you ever come to Kazakhstan, you will be greeted with hugs and warm kisses.
I appreciate that.
But not me?
Yeah. What about us? What are we, losers?
What about us?
Well, I'm always talking about how I want to go to Kazakhstan. The two of y'all are like, yeah, whatever. But I'm serious.
I would love to go to Kazakhstan. In fact, when I was traveling, I even looked up going to Kazakhstan. But
Kazakhstan's awesome.
Listen, the visa only lasts for a month.
It's got everything you need. It's got really cool wild cities and nightlife. It's got like vast, empty, big spaces. It's got outdoor adventuring and hiking. It's got everything.
Well, it's got deserts and forests and mountains and rivers. And I'm looking at it. Listen,
and by the way, it has a really interesting, weird thing in southeastern Kazakhstan is the Jewish autonomous region, which Stalin established. And it was supposed to be like a sort of an Israel within the USSR. And it was reduced to like basically under 1,000 people still lived there. And then like young Jews started to move out there to try to reinvigorate it. And they're trying to like make a go of like making it work now.
Interesting.
So it was, so I do want the answer to this question. Robbie, what media is your son consuming to be so jingoistic? Groyper? We should expose these channels. And thanks for the dono.
To be honest, I don't think it's any real media at all. I think it's just a big part of what it is. I think it's a couple different things. My family has a long military tradition. Like, we've fought in every war this country's been in. And by we, I mean the male members of my line from pre-colonial Indian wars through the Korean War. I mean, it's just all the way through. I mean, they fought on both sides of the war of northern aggression. And so that's not a secret. We have a family Bible where we got the discharge records and stuff. We got letters written. Some of them are like 150 years old. And so I think it's just a big part of it. Part of it's economic. Part of it is because he feels like he wants to be a part of something bigger than himself. He wants to have a life of service. So he's bought in on the idea of what America's supposed to be, not what it really is.
He could serve God. Why you got to do this? Like a life of service to what? It's that part. You can be a service to the church. You can be a service to the homeless. You can be a service to your family. You can be a service to all sorts of stuff.
Family lore is powerful, though, right? I mean, I think about my grandfather in the French Resistance, and that always, informs me whenever I'm, thinking, should I sue the LA Times? Well, my grandfather would have fucking killed them, not sued them. So like the least I could do is sue them. I mean, I think that like you're definitely, you're thinking like my father, was a notable engineer and problem solver as an aeronautical engineer. And so, like, again, I think of myself as like, oh, I can handle this thing technically. I have my dad's genes. I mean, you think about these things, you just do.
You think about those things, and those things are in your genes.
Yeah.
Like, my dad wasn't anything. He wasn't even a good father. He wasn't even a father at all. And if you talk about my grandfather,
My father was not a good father either.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my thing is, sure, service, great, but service to what? That's not random, right? Like, there's all sorts of things that you could serve.
But you got to think about it's how we talked about before, right? Is the symbolism. There's a reason why the symbols matter for any nation or empire.
True.
That's what it is. He's in love with the idea of what America is supposed to be, and he wants to protect what he thinks America is supposed to be. What America actually is a factor in.
Yeah. Why does he think that, though? I mean, at this stage in 2026, why? I mean, where would he be getting the information that America is like, has the even makes an attempt to adhere to its supposed ideals?
I've asked that question to him many, many times, and he's just like, we have got enemies we've got to defend the country against.
Right. I think he misses the point of domestic or exterior.
That's what
ignoring the domestic.
Sure. Well, that's why I told him to join ICE. I said, if you want to do this, join ICE. You can travel the world right here in the United States and go and defend the country against a real threat.
I guess my point is, the
real
threat
join the Marines
are the people in Congress. The real threat are the people in our politics. It's the people, like, meaning those are the corrupting influence on this particular system. And I got to be honest with you. If I'm married to somebody and she's 400 pounds, why am I going to act like she's a supermodel? Don't you have to love her as is? Like, if you love your country that much, you have to love it warts and all. But you have to acknowledge the warts. You can't just pretend that shit doesn't exist in order for you as a basis of operation.
Well, listen, I agree. I also got to think in mind. Now, have you ever met a 17-year-old that doesn't know everything?
Yes. Oh, that doesn't know everything?
Yeah.
No.
Have you ever met a 17-year-old who does not have all the answers to the world? You can't clean your room, but you can solve geopolitical problems. Think about what I just said. There's a reason why they go after teenagers. There's a reason why they lower the voting age. It's because it's all about testosterone. It's about feelings. It's about all these things. And also, one thing you got to kind of keep in mind is thinking about the question that what kind of media it is that he is consuming. I've read a lot of the history books and stuff, and it's very militaristic in the way that it's written, the way that it's pointed, the way that it's pushed out by the Department of Education. It's just the idea of America being the city on the hill, the one bright spot, is something that you always see. That's just a part of it that's baked in.
That's really where this is coming from. For next week, that was inspired by Robbie's son enlisting in the Marines. So it's if you're having trouble reading this or you're just listening, it's a kid in a recruitment office. He goes, at age 17, I can't drink or gamble or vote or smoke or rent a car or buy a gun or work as a bartender. And then the recruiter goes, because your judgment can't be trusted. And the kid goes, but I can enlist in the military. And the recruiter goes, same reason.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I mean, that's a big part of it. No, it's just, it is a very difficult thing. Like yesterday was his first day going to PT. It was him with a bunch of Marines and other people who are signing up. And he said, Dad, I ran 4 miles yesterday with weights on my back, and I feel great. And I said, well, what makes you feel great about it? I said, because it showed me what I was able to do, and I feel like I'm a part of something bigger than what I am. Those are very powerful drives, especially for a young man.
That's true.
Silly drives.
Yeah, it is a silly drive. Well, not to mention, my argument in my column this week is there's a lot of other ways to scratch that itch, though.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of other, government and non-government organizations that allow you to be part of something bigger, that allow you to have that sense of camaraderie, to exert yourself physically, to travel the world and meet interesting other people, and not kill them. There's, there's a lot of ways. And I just think that like, yeah, the thing is, you can be driving down, a street in Kalispell, and you'll see the recruiting office in a strip mall. You're not going to see the Peace Corps office in a strip mall.
Right.
And I think that's exactly the problem. Like most people, they're just not really aware. But I mean, honestly, if you're 16 or 17 and you're like, hey, I'm 16 and a half years old and I want to get the fuck out of my little town and I want to go see the world and do some crazy shit. Go on to Grok and just ask, like, what are my options? I don't have much money. I come from a poor family. There are many, many options.
Listen, at the end of the day,
the one that people think of first. I mean,
because they advertise like crazy.
And I do get the itch of, like, a government doesn't want testosterone-filled 17-year-olds in the country. They want them away. Meaning, these are going to be problems in your society in general just because of how they are structured, with the things that they want to do. Great. Organize them and send them out to kill other people. That's what we need to do. When we bring them back into the country, they will be older, they will be more mature, and hopefully they will be less inclined to kill the people who are around them or commit crimes. I get the logic of it from a government standpoint.
I don't, because if you want to lower testosterone, the best way you can do it is incentivize people to start families, get married. Married men have less testosterone than unmarried men do. So if that's your biggest concern,
but also at 17,
at
a young age, men tend to be more ruffian.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, to pretend like that's not true, it's nonsense. They tend to be far more aggressive. They tend to be far more getting involved in the crimes and committing, just random shit. From a government's point of view, send them away. Send them and put them where they were going against.
And also, these are people who are rubes. I mean, they're suckers. I mean, let's face it. If the mandatory recruitment age didn't start until 30, good luck. Right now, only 10% of 17-year-olds, according to the polls, are amenable or open to the possibility of joining the military, right? So 9 out of 10 are not. That number is down, by the way, significantly, and it's a concern for military recruiters. It used to be more like 13, 16, 20%. Right. So that number keeps dropping due to, all the bullshit that the government's up to and all their lies. But imagine if it was 30. Imagine. It'd be like 1%. Nobody would do it because they all know that even if you want to go and kill, dark-skinned people, the government's going to lie to you. They're going to throw you away like a snot rag. They don't give a shit about you. They see the homeless people who are all vets sleeping on the streets. I mean, it's just like, they know about the stories about how the VA sucks. They know that they break their promises. They know that they manipulate you. It's a very, honestly, they treat you very disrespectfully. I mean, you should be able, honestly, like any other employer, if you're like, oh, I'll choose what city to work in. No, not there. You don't even get to choose what hemisphere you work in. You get to choose what job you do. Like, oh, I'll take this job or I won't take this job. No, the military's like, nah, we know you like this, but you're doing that. I mean,
your life is the government. Yeah. I mean, but it's understood that way. It has to be that way. You can't get choice in the military because otherwise you wouldn't do the shit that they tell you to do.
Lots of militaries in the world do provide options, though.
They may provide some options, but at the end of the day, if they say go kill so and so, or we need you to die in this situation, meaning that can't be an option for you. That has to be at the leisure, at the pleasure of the state. Otherwise, the shit just doesn't work. Hey, we need you to go to Hawaii. I don't want to go to Hawaii. Right?
Right.
It's like, how does that work if they need you in Hawaii? Hey, we need you to go to Japan. I don't want to go to Japan. It doesn't work that way.
Then maybe they pay you more to go to Hawaii or Japan.
Well, Thomas wants to travel. That's part of the allure. But I told him, if you really want to travel, go join the Navy. That way you can be at sea for like 10 months out of the year. You can go sail over the Gulf of Hormuz or the Arabian Sea, and you can see all the porpoises that you want. Enjoy. I mean, so that's something you're able to do. When he took his ASVAB, he tested just under an 80, which is pretty good. And when he started the recruiters, so this I show up a lot of things. Like, you could do air traffic control. Said, if you're going to do this, get yourself into a job that will translate into the civilian world when you leave. Mm-hmm. Like, don't be a parachute rigger. Don't be a rifleman. Do something. If you're going to do this, get a skill that you can take with you every day of your life. Mm-hmm. And so he qualified for engineering because Thomas is smart. And I'm just saying because he's my kid. Like, he's legitimately intelligent. He's much smarter than I am. And he He qualified for engineering. He qualified for the CB construction units. He qualified for air traffic control. I said, if you're going to do this, go to some of those things. Don't get the armor. That's stupid. What are you going to do when you get out? That's retarded. If you're doing this for economic advantage, get yourself into a career that you can take with you, and at least make that case. And one thing, and I'll say this, and I'll go away. How we were talking about a few days ago about how some people go knock on your door and try to evangelize you. I'm one of those people that does that. Say, hey, hi, my name is Robbie. I'd like to invite you to come to church. Have you heard about Jesus? That's me. And where this is relevant, when I was
Does anyone ever say, no, I've never heard of Jesus?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about this Jesus fellow.
We have immigrants out the wazoo, man. There's a lot of people. This is not Ohio in the 1960s.
Okay, what immigrants have never heard of Jesus?
Anyway, let me tell the story. So,
sorry.
So when I was going in and I was talking to the recruiter, because I'm used to people kind of looking at me like, "Who the hell are you? And why are you saying this?" I then gave him my concern. Thomas is right there about what he's doing, about how I do not support the government, and how he, this Marine recruiter, swore an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And he is blindly serving a government that violates the Constitution that he swore an oath to. I said, that is my biggest concern. I said, you take a good long look at the mirror about the hypocrisy that you and the other people like you have. Because if you swear an oath to defend something and then you actively support without question a man who violates it, or a system that violates it, or a government that violates it, you are a hypocrite of the highest order.
Well, hypocrisy is baked into military service, right? Like,
of course it is. And
like,
then,
for example, you can't. You're supposed to disobey an illegal order, but if you disobey an order, you can be court-martialed.
For sure,
get their story straight, right?
Yeah. 100%. And then I give them a link to the DeProgram show. So you need to tune in and share this with your buddies. I'm that kind of guy.
Yeah, that's great. Hey there, Mr. Recruiter, man. All right, a few more comments. Manchild, no, Ted, it was an antenna issue with the helicopter's new position on the Ellipse. Please do your research. It worked fine on the lawn. Line of sight got disrupted. But I said that. It's the location of where it left from. And what I said, these are all from the Washington Post, those quotes that I gave you. So it's not like I made them up. I did do my research. Not that I don't make mistakes, but I don't think that's one of them. Sir Bikeslot, there's some good news. The Marines do have a culture unlike the Army. Please be there for your son when he comes home. Thanks for the $1. Yeah, I know Robbie will be 100%. Okay, so John Ratcliffe, he went to Moscow. There was speculation as to why he went. First, it was assumed that he would be there to try to, work on the Ukraine thing. Now, then they said, well, probably it was more like about Iran. And now we were told that it was probably in order to warn Russia not to attack Europe. Not that there's any evidence, to my knowledge, that Russia was planning to do so. And now, the latest, I expect this story to change a few more times by the end of this broadcast, but the latest was don't ramp up your war against Ukraine because we will be mad if you do that. I'm not sure how that would manifest or why this would be something that the Russians would care about. But they said, but anyway, it's the meaty part of the story, and the reason that I thought we should talk about it, Jamarl, is that the CIA's official assessment right now is that Russia views the United States as dramatically weakened by, let's face it, its strategic defeat in the Middle East. And it's interesting because it's like, that means this is the assessment within the corridors of power, and it's viewed as serious enough to be actionable enough to send the CIA director to meet with the FSB.
Yeah, so I think there are a few things. They are trying to hide the actual reason in a body of some of these stories are just nonsense. Like, there was one story where Ratcliffe went in order to give Putin an assessment of the war in Ukraine because we in the CIA and our bleeding hearts don't believe that the Russians or the Russian president is getting an actual honest assessment of what is happening on the battlefield. Oh, that's so nice of you to do that. That's so adorable of you to come here and give us an assessment because my troops are not telling me the real story. Dude, it's like if you honestly believe that Vladimir Putin is listening to the CIA director's assessment of what is happening in the Ukraine war, they are dumber and more incompetent than we realize. There is nothing in the Russian edifice that is going to listen to anything coming out of the United States about anything pertaining to the Ukraine war. So that was that story that was floating. Then it was, well, we were warning you about attacking NATO. And as you point out, there's no evidence that Russia is planning on attacking NATO. In fact, Putin seems to be doing everything possible to avoid hitting NATO, despite everything in NATO's power to bring that about. So there's that. And if you're looking at the Russian Duma or the Russian population, if Putin did hit a NATO target, they would back him on it.
True.
Far to the right of Putin in regards to this war. So then there was that story. Then it was, we are coming to get your help about Iran, which is what I really suspect this is about. I mean, it could be all those things, right? But I really suspect it's this. It wouldn't be shocking to me if the CIA came to lie to Putin about the assessment of the battlefield from the U.S. or Ukrainian perspective. Okay, that's not shocking. CIA lies, cheats, and steals for a living. I don't think they're going to have a receptive audience. They didn't even get to meet Putin. And if anything, the director of whoever's intelligence for the Russians probably just told Putin, this is nonsense. This is BS, right? With the exception of Iran, which is what I think this boils down to. With the U.S. not having, looks weak. We look weak.
Mm-hmm.
We were strategically defeated.
Well, we are weak.
We are weak in this case, right? Trump tries to take down a government. It doesn't work. He backs away to a blockade. It doesn't work. Now he's to this nonsense, what does it call it? Operation Isolator. No, Operation, I forget the exact name of it, but it's done. But the idea of taking all of these countries off the SWIFT system and passing secondary sanctions is nonsense. If the countries don't go for it, then you're left with your thumb in your ass. And then you're forced to actually do it when you realize all of this stuff isolates the United States and backfires on the United States when the largest economies of the world says F off. You're already in a trade war with Canada. You're going to end up in one with China. Russia doesn't care what you do at this point. And India is probably going to try to defend their sovereignty. Even Pakistan, who is a client state, said F off. You're going to look like an idiot. And so it sounds like this was a message about Iran, that all of this other stuff is being used to try to cover that particular message. Putin is supposed to be meeting Pezeshkian in Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan. Now, keep in mind, Pezeshkian, unless he wants to start an internal war in the country with the supreme leader, is somewhat isolated in what he can ultimately do. He's out there making speeches about peace. That is not the way the supreme leader has set up his entourage at this point. These guys are preparing for a larger and longer war. So Ratcliffe can go and give that message. Putin is going to meet Pezeshkian. I would imagine that whatever that message was, Putin is going to relay it to Pezeshkian. I don't know how much leverage Russia has over Iran at this point because Russia's support for Iran has been little to nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, sure. Let me modify that. Little to nothing in an overt sense. Sure, they've given intelligence, but it's not like they've been given weapon systems and these type of things that the Russians can use to pressure Iran to stop. And let's also be honest, regardless of what Russia says, it is in Russia's interest for the war in Iran to continue. So who knows? I would love to be a fly on the wall. I do think
Me too. Yeah. Let me mention something to you that I came across, Jamarl, and I apologize for just dropping this on you, but I know you can handle it. So the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve has been dropping like a stone, right? And it's currently at 289 million barrels. Within 3 weeks, before the end of September, the last of the government's emergency release will be gone. It will then be at there's a statutory floor, I didn't know about this, 252.4 million barrels. Under a law called the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, at that point, the president no longer has any authority to order routine economic drawdowns. that triggers oil export bans in order to protect the U.S. oil and gas industry.
Yes.
That creates an immediate severe supply shock to Europe and Asian countries that buy our products. So the shit doesn't hit the fan here first. It hits Europe first. Not that it's all, obviously it's all interconnected. I thought this was like, I was wondering, like, when does the shit hit the fan? It looks like the shit hits the fan around October 1st.
Right. Yes. Yeah. This is rational, right? Like, a country is not necessarily going to eat itself before it allows other countries to get eaten. I mean, unless you're Europe. Europe will set itself on fire for the United States.
What if Trump signs an executive order? I guess then it gets litigated in the courts, right?
Yeah, but from the U.S. perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. It's like, hey, we've run out of oil. We need to stop exporting.
Right.
The problem with the logic, though, is that we need our oil process in order to be used. If I understand this correctly, like if my reading on this is correct, even though we process a lot of oil, it's not necessarily the type of oil that we ourselves can just put in our tank. And
that's exactly it. Like when we say we're energy dependent independent in raw numbers. But it would be kind of like, I think the analogy would be like, let's say you have chickens and you can, you have as many eggs as you can fucking deal with, but that's all you've got. So you could subsist on the caloric intake from just eggs and chicken meat, but at a certain point you need a more varied diet or you're going to die. So you have to trade for other kinds of foods. That's where the United States is. We don't pump the kind of oil that we need for everything, so we have to be part of the global energy market.
Exactly.
So we sell overseas and we have to buy from other countries.
Well, we can't build.
And by the way, the floor for the SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that floor is there because of the pumping issue. Like you need to have a certain amount of volume in that in order to pump that in a particular way. Otherwise, you're going to damage, I guess, the containers or whatever the process that they use in order to pull that oil.
Yeah, there's only so much capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so he can do this, meaning Trump can continuously draw down over and over and over and over again, but it will come to a head. Iran is running an economic war. That's what it is. And so it's not like they're going to bomb New York or they're going to bomb DC. It's more so we are going to put an economic tax on you that is going to get worse and worse and worse.
And right in time for the midterms.
Well, in general. I mean, Professor Morandi was making the argument this war may last to the next president. And by the way, they've done this before. If you remember Jimmy Carter, they kept those hostages up until Ronald Reagan comes into office. And obviously, Reagan was making back deals to basically say, keep holding the hostages. We'll make a better deal when we get in, right? But regardless of the illegality of that, it's the same process or the same thought. We're holding this until the next president. We're going to damage your presidency. We're going to make it hurt. And when you have gas prices going to $6 a gallon, et cetera, or when oil goes to $150 a barrel, or when diesel spirals into $8, $9, famine, the inability to get food, paying more so for things like cereal and wheat and grain, et cetera, paying more for cows, all of these things start to come into play and start to eat. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how bad it gets. For the longest time, Trump has been able to manipulate the oil markets to keep the prices arbitrarily low. I don't know if you can keep doing that, especially the moment that reports the SPR is dry or the SPR can't supply anything else.
Yeah, so the prices are going to start to go really up. I mean, not that they haven't already. I don't want to diminish the pain at the pump. It's substantial. 35% increase is a big raise, in a matter of months. But
why pick a fight with Canada, who's one of the world's largest oil exporters, and also this country hasn't built a new refinery in over 40 years. I'm not sure we can build one anymore. We can't build transformers anymore for power plants or transmission lines. So even if we wanted to build new refineries, which we should be doing anyway.
Well, there's major environmental concerns about building new refineries, right? There would be a lot of environmental opposition.
Ignore them.
Maybe.
I mean, listen, national security matters more than your tree hugger. I mean,
exactly. It's like you will get the national security. You would get if
you'll find some state where you can put it anyway. Yeah.
Well, if oil was $2.50. there will be no refineries. If oil is $8, nobody's going to care about the climate.
True.
No, but seriously, why pick a fight with Canada now?
You tell me.
It makes no sense.
You tell me.
I think what it is a distraction. One of Trump's superpowers, and this is one of the things I really admire about him, he's able to change the topic anytime that he wants. And so I think the reason why he's punching Canada in the face right now is because he stalled out in Ukraine. He's lost the war in Iran, and so he's desperately trying to change the topic.
Well, he's always changing the topic.
No, You think that there's a mind behind this behavior. I think he is radically incompetent, full of hubris and narcissism. And because Canada and Europe has given him everything that he wanted, the moment that Canada balked, he kept pushing. Meaning, it's almost like this person gives me everything that I want. They're a pushover. I see them as a pussy. I don't see them as an equal to me. And so when we're making a deal, I don't have to keep my deals with you. What are you going to do about it? It's that. It's the same thing with Iran. It's the same behavior with Gaza or with Lebanon. And it's the same behavior with the European Union. It's the same behavior with Canada. The only difference is Canada is like, we have a penis too. Right? But you're not going to teach us. You're not going to treat us this way.
But
it's that. Like, he just
do they have a penis? Does Canada?
No, they apparently do. We didn't know, but now we found out. They do.
I mean, maybe it's a micro penis. Maybe it's finally starting to drop. I mean, who knows? But the point of Trump,
I'm not find out that they had one.
Listen.
Now we do.
I'm not saying that Trump's competent. I'm saying he's a showman. He
showman.
Understands media, and so that's what this is. It's distraction.
He's flooding. It's more flooding the zone. Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong. When I hear flooding the zone, I hear it in the sense of Trump is trying to change the conversation by having a fighting match with Canada, as opposed to Trump is radically incompetent and he believes that he can do whatever he wants and he keeps running.
I think they're both true.
I think he ran into a headwind.
I think it's just sort of like he's a narcissist and he wants to be the center of attention for all things. We've seen that time after time where some story did not involve him and he had to insinuate himself into that story. And in order to get the attention. And I think the effect of it is that everybody's exhausted and nobody can react to all of his bullshit because it's flowing so fast and furious, but also he's stupid and incompetent. So
let me ask you this. True. Do you think that he thought Canada would give in when he made his last demands?
Yeah.
Europe did. Exactly.
Yeah. Canada, I mean, look, honestly, that's a more reasonable presumption on his part than many of his other presumptions because, the Canadian economy is minute compared to the size of the United States. I mean, the economic dependence that Canada has on us as a import nation is massive. So, I mean, I'm sure they're like, we're in NAFTA, we're OG, right? Like, but it's like, no, it's like, so I think Trump did not think that the Canadians would bite back. He didn't consider their own domestic political concerns, which is just like, we've been living like we've been America's bitches for so long to the point that even our coins are the same size as theirs. And like, we've got to now like little Timmy's growing up, right? Like, no more, mommy, you can't hit us. You can't touch us in the bad place anymore. That's all this is.
Turn of the worm. The turn of the worm.
It's too much.
It's like when the worm turns and they're like, what are you doing raising up on me like this? This is not our relationship, right? Like you get so accustomed to somebody being your bitch. And then when finally you hit something where they're like, okay, even me, this is too far. And then you're like, what do you mean this is too far? You've taught them, right? Like you've taught the bully to be the bully. I feel the same way about the Russians, right? Like for all of the talk about red lines and Putin says this and Putin says that, when Europe does something that is overtly provocative, especially if it crosses a red line, you're teaching them that your red lines doesn't mean anything, which invites them to go further in regards to the attacks that they do. At some point, you will hit a red line, in which case the Russian response is going to be withering. But maybe you wouldn't have gotten to that withering response if you didn't allow them to cross your red lines in the first place. This is true for Europe. This is true for Canada. This is true as a basis of operation of reality.
True. And that's where we leave it this Friday, except Q&A show coming up at 12 noon here on DeProgram. What's up?
Can Robbie take my space in the Q&A?
Robbie, can you take Jamarl's space in the Q&A? He says, yay. All right, Robbie and I handling Q&A. Jamarl, you're off the hook until Monday. See you then at 9 a.m. We're here Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. TMI coming up right now with Manila and myself. DMZ America back at its regular time at 11 a.m. this morning Eastern Time with me and Scott Stantis. We'll be talking about the fucked up situations, rulings coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court, and we'll have a legal expert in to talk about why they've become so overtly partisan. All right. Thanks, everyone, and talk to you later. Bye.
Yes, Tim.